It's episode 10 of the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast. It is week of April the 4th. Today is April the 8th. And we're going to be covering this week's numbers. We're also going to be following up on what we talked about last week with the forbearances and the issues that's coming up with that. So stay tuned. First, the numbers. And here's the numbers captured Wednesday morning on April the 7th. Actives were 4168, which is up 185 from the week before. Pendings dropped a bit by four contracts to 1977, and our closes were up at 2673. That's up 341 from the week before, and that's what we normally see at the end of each month. Our totals going into contract between UCB's buyer's contingency and pending, they all went down a bit. So this could be why we are seeing a little bit more active properties, although we did see the big closes come at the end of the month. Our coming soons are looking at 955. Those are the properties that will be showing up on the market here in the next couple weeks. All things considered, not bad for the end of a month. We are going up. This is our second week of growth. I think we had it like about 45 from the week before this. Hopefully this means that we're starting to signal that we have hit the bottom of the limited inventory. So next part, we're going to have a conversation about the forbearances and information that's happened since the last time we talked. So last week we talked about forbearances, and we talked about the issues that we could be having if all these forbearances were suddenly foreclosed on and all these properties wound up hitting the market. We stated that there was about 19,000 FHA insured loans out there that were currently in forbearance in the Phoenix area, and the impact that would happen if those things all hit at the same time. I also tried to do some math on the fly, and it didn't work out too well. Well, I did my homework this time, and according to the numbers we were looking at, if we were at 22% of the listings that we should be having, and with the numbers that we have, means we should have about 18,000 listings on the market. Now, we were talking about 19,000 coming in from these forbearances. So that would be, like I said earlier, if these were all to hit in one day, it would be catastrophic. If they trickle in over the course of a couple months, with the 112 people looking for 22 houses, with the 12% over more buyers than we're used to having, we could absorb that readily. It would take a little while. You would not see the the huge growth in equity in houses, the appreciation that we're seeing where we're going up like 1% a month. That would slow up, but we might not see actual loss in value. We would not see houses suddenly start getting worth less. But, and all the important stuff happens after you hear the word but, if this hits all at the same time, it could be bad. So since we had our last conversation, two things happened. On Thursday, same time I was putting this out on the internet, the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, made a statement to loan servicers. Now, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, is an organization that started after our last big crash. And they are a branch of the federal government. They're part of the executive. And their job in the world is to look after the consumer and make sure that banks and lenders aren't doing them dirty. They have broad-reaching powers. They don't have a lot of restraint, and they can basically crush any lender out there that they decide to go after. So they wrote a memo and sent it out to all the loan servicers, and calling them, putting them on the carpet. All right, this is your come to Jesus moment. They mentioned the amount of forbearances that were out there. They mentioned that the CFPB is telling these companies, you're going to have to come up with a solution for this. And if you don't do it in the way that we like it, we're going to come down on top of you. The big things that the CFPB was looking for is make sure that you have a plan to make sure that people who are in forbearances stay in their homes and aren't getting charged more at the end of the day than they're getting paid right now. That's a warning order. That is just a straight up, you better come up with a policy where you can state, hey, we tried everything we could. And that means the loan servicers right now, they're pretty scrambling. All right. They need to come up with a way to take your loan if you're in forbearance and start getting you making payments on it. And if they do wind up foreclosing on your property, they're going to make sure that they have all their ducks in a row and they've done everything they possibly could to get you to start paying the mortgage back. But it was their last resort, which means we're going to see they're going to start talking about loan renegotiations. Some of the other things that came out of this memo was the CFPB does not want loan servicers charging you more than you're already being paid or already supposed to be getting charged right now. So if your mortgage payment is $1,000 and you haven't paid that $1,000 for the last 6 months, right? They can't redo this loan to the point where you're paying more than $1,000. And they can do this a couple different ways. One of the ways that was suggested by CFPB is to take whatever loan that you're in and move it to a 40-year loan. This will increase the length of your loan. You'll be making more interest payments and less principal payments because you don't need to pay off the entire loan in 30 years. And so that sort of gets stretched out. This is going to be offset in a certain way by the interest rates. If they wind up charging you the interest rate, the fair market interest rate that's going on right now, and you purchased this house a year ago, there's a chance that they would be putting you into a higher interest rate, which means you're going to be making more of a monthly payment. But if they can stretch it out, add an extra 10 years on the life of this loan, they can make your interest payment smaller. Your equity is going to grow smaller. They're going to get paid more interest at the end of the day, but they've meet the CFPB's requirements as the CFPB told them. This is how companies work, right? If we're all adults here, we've all been around the sun a couple thousand times. Government comes down and they come up, hey, we want you to do this. Businesses come up with a way so they can say, oh yeah, we did that, and they're going to wind up having to do that in the best way possible for them. So that's where these companies are at right now. Now, these are the loan servicers, right? They're not the bank. They actually work for the bank. These are the guys who do the grunt work of taking your check, cashing it, making sure that the bank gets paid. They're the ones who come after you if your loan isn't getting paid. Now, I brought this thing specifically because I want you guys to see. I'm going to use this as my argument that the loan servicer companies know this is coming down the pike, and they've known this since back in January. This is a document that was sent by my previous lender that we were making our mortgage payments to, and we were quite happily writing checks and sending them off to them. And then all of a sudden, they changed the rules. They send out a really, really nice little letter, all right, that says, please read the following. And because I do read the following and I go through all of this, and all of this, and all of this, we get to the money shot. The fee schedule. This is our former lenders, loan servicers, our former loan servicing company that we're quite happily sending checks to, letting us know that the rules have changed and they would start charging us for things in case we needed them to perform services for us. And I went through this fee schedule and I realized every one of these things on here is upping the charges in case you start missing payments or you start going into foreclosure. This is offsetting the cost onto you, the consumer. All right. This is not the way the rules were, all right, till January. And then they send this out. All right. So now we're starting to see that before, if there was a return check fee, right, it would have been zero. They wouldn't have charged us for a return check. Hey, not enough money in the account. We're sending the check back to you. Now they're charging $50 every time you bounce a check on them. All right. There's a property valuation fee. All right. Property valuation is if the lender wants to make sure how much your house is worth. All right. They should already know that because they had an appraisal done when you took the loan out and bought the house. But this is in case they need to update that. Like, say, let's see, Johnny over there, let's see how much his place is really worth right now. If they decide that they need to do that, perhaps because you've been in forbearance and now we need to restructure our loan and they want to do that, they're going to charge you $450 for that. Before, they would have charged you 80 and just gotten a BPO, which is a broker's price opinion, which is they call some third party up, say, hey Ray, check out Johnny's house. How much does it go for? I think it goes for this. All right, but that went from 80 to 450. All right, if they have to come out and inspect your property to check on the condition on it, all right, for their own interest, just to make sure that your house is still there and there's a roof on top of it, they're going to charge you, the person living in the house, $50 to answer their question for them. There's a property preservation fee in case you suddenly leave the house. Because this was a thing that happened in '08. People would just get up and leave, and they'd have to go in there and change the locks and secure it and stuff like that. Well, they're going to charge you $3,000 for that. And the list goes on and on, including if they actually wind up you start declaring bankruptcy, and they have to start litigating to make sure they get paid. Well, they're going to charge you $2,000 for you to declare bankruptcy and include their loan in your bankruptcy. All right? They're going to charge you $20,000, up to $20,000, in case they actually have to go in there and litigate against you in your bankruptcy, or litigate against you because you're not making a payment. All right, they can charge you up to $20,000 of that, and they will charge you up to $35,000 for attorney's fees and costs. Now, you notice I did not once this entire thing mention who this servicer was. All right, this is protect the guilty, because hell, they got $35,000 attorneys out there who can come after little old Ray and sue my ass if I talk bad about him. All right, so let's just say that was just all hypothetical. All this paperwork is just stuff that I made up so I'd have a visual aid to tell you about how they're planning this. This did not just come out of thin air with these people. All right, they are getting themselves in position to start handling a large amount of foreclosures. And unlike '08, when the foreclosure kicked off, they know that the majority of houses out there, the majority of any house, I'd say any house that was bought, more than a year ago, has equity in it. Now, you remember my little rant. All right. You should always remember all my rants because they build on each other. Remember the rant where I was talking about how they would be happy to make sure you emptied your savings, empty your 401k, raided the kids' college fund, and then they would work out with you? Well, they know you got the money in there. It's all in the equity wrapped up in your house. And so they're getting in position by putting these charges into place when they have to take on the expense of foreclosing on your property and getting you kicked out. You got a large piggy bank in there called the equity in your home, and they're positioning themselves to be able to come after it. So this is my theory. I could be wrong. I'm wrong lots of times. Right? I could be hyperbolic. I am also hyperbolic lots of times. Right? And I don't think I am on this one. Right? I'm not saying this is all going to happen. I'm just saying they're moving the pieces in place. It's sort of like on September 1939. Some Polish border guard is looking across the wire going, what are all those tanks doing over there? It's sort of like that. They're not invading you yet. They're just rolling the tanks up to the line, and they're sitting there idling, and they're topping up the fluids. Right, so that all being said, the point I really want to get across to you guys today is that if you are currently in forbearance, you do not need to lose your house, but you really, really need a plan now. The second bit of news that came down the pike, and you remember part of what I said last week, right? If Congress kicks the can down the road, sooner or later they're going to have to deal with this. Well, it wasn't more than the following Monday, all right? They send the announcement out Thursday, right? The following Monday, they come up with a big list, 150 pages worth of memo, talking about things that the CFPB is planning on doing. And you have until May 10th to comment on it. And one of the things they have in there that they want people to comment on is kicking the can down the road till the end of the year. All right. No foreclosures on forbearances until December 31st, 2021. And that's a good can kick. But what does that do? It doesn't fix the problem. It doesn't fix the problem with people who are in forbearance right now who have not found a job yet, and they're just watching that debt owed build up every month. They don't make a payment. It also doesn't help the people who are making payments now because, yeah, they weren't allowed to show up to work for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, but now they can. But now they have that bulk that they suddenly need to get rid of. It just kicks the can down the road, and we need to figure out how we're going to resolve this issue. So some lenders are going to roll it, tack it onto the end. Some lenders are going to go to that. We're going to switch you over to a 40-year. And you might want to start talking to your lender right now, this second, going, hey, what is your plans on doing this? So you can make plans on how you're going to respond to this. I've checked with a couple lenders. If you're currently in forbearance, you cannot refinance your house and pull your equity out early and turn around and make that payment off. I did not ask you to see if you could take like a HELOC or a home equity line of credit or get a second or something to pay that off. And because if at all possible, you really do want to make that payment, right? You do not want to be paying extra interest over the life of this loan that you don't have to. If you have it in savings for some reason, pull it out of savings and make the payment now. There's either way, you need to start trying to figure out what your solution to that's going to be. Talk to your lender, call them up, see if which way they're going to think about that. If you are in a position where now might be a really good time to downsize or move in with the kids, while you have equity in the house, before they start charging you for all these taxes and penalties and overages and whatnot, getting rid of the place might not be a bad idea, because you will get your equity back out of it. The other thing you might want to think about, especially for you vets out there, I had a talk with Pat Diamede about it. You might remember him from a couple episodes ago. And there was this thing that came out back when we were short selling, that because of the way the VA loan is structured, you could short sell your house and qualify to buy a new house the next day. You could literally set up the situation where, okay, I'm going to sell this house and I'm going to go live with mom and dad for a week, and then I'm going to move into my new house. You can do that with a VA loan. I don't think you can do that with FHA or conventionals or anything like that, because you're going to be pretty much locked out for a period of time. But that was something unique to the VA loan on that. So I talked it over with Pat where he thinks he's got a way to work that out. It sounded pretty good. So if you are a veteran and you are in forbearance, call Pat now. All right. Pat will let you know, because a VA loan is going to be a little bit different than anything else in these things. Other issues we're going to start seeing is if all the banks who have loans out there got together and decided to work this all at the exact same time and do this right, and they all slowly started doing their thing to get people right-sized or get people out of the houses who can't afford the house, right? Maybe by just calling them up and say, hey, you're never going to get out of this thing. You might as well sell now before we have to start charging you all these empty dump fees, right? And then take all your money out, take all your equity away from you. If they were to go that route, we might not have a crash. What my concern is that we are in this position where we don't have a rush on toilet paper, but as soon as people start thinking there's a rush on toilet paper, we have a rush on toilet paper. And as soon as people start thinking other people are hoarding, so they start hoarding, well, then we got people hoarding. The concerns of the bank is, oh my God, we're going to have another crash like we did in 10, 11, 12. We have all of these loans wrapped up in all of these houses that are not going to be worth as much as they are now, and we're going to take it in the shorts. Quick, foreclose as fast as you can. When the bank starts seeing that and the bank starts worrying about, oh my God, we got to cash in before, Wells Fargo's sitting there going, oh, we got to cash in now and, get done before Bank of America dumps their inventory. It's going to be bad. So once again, we're in this position where we need to deal with the kindness and generosity of the banks and the wisdom of our federal government. I got nothing else to say after that. So I always watch these videos after I record them, see if there's anything I need to cut out real quick. Occasionally I say bad words and I edit. But on this particular case, I don't think I want it to end on that much of a downer. So not ending on that much of a downer. What happens if you're not in forbearance? What happens if you're just Joe Sixpack out there and you didn't get impacted by a job loss You didn't decide to go into forbearance just in case. You've been making your payments and everything's fine. You just bought a house in the last couple years. What's going to happen to you? You're not planning on moving. You're not planning on going anywhere. You're just in the house. What happens to you? Let me tell you what happened to us, me and the wife. All right. So we bought our house in 2004. We paid $125,000 for a house in 2004. We refied in 2006. You might remember a couple episodes ago I was saying about how those of us in the industry at the time, those of us working the title industry at the time, saw this one point in May of 2006 where all of a sudden we didn't have more closings. And things just stopped growing at the exponential rate it was growing before. I refied in April. It was the next month when everything came to a complete total stop. So we pretty much refied out at the top of the market, which is not a good thing to do. Right? But we were smart. Right? I was watching the market. I knew that at some point we were going to have a correction, and we decided to, I think we appraised like 220 back at the time. So not bad, right? We bought a house for 125. 2 years later, it's appraising for 220. Life is grand. And they went and offered, they offered to let us take the entire amount out. They offered to let us borrow $220,000 on that property. And we decided not to. All right. We took a little bit out to pay off some debt and this and that and the other thing. So we took our $125,000 mortgage because we had originally gotten what used to be called an 80-20, where you could finance 100% of your loan over two separate loans. And we went and took 140 out. And we held on to it. All right. Paid everything off. A couple years later, crash happens. Life is grim. Right? Life is seriously grim at that point. Right? I helped the lady next door to us in a much comparable house to what we have short sale her house in about 2011 or so for $50,000. Right? That's what my house was effectively worth. We owed 140 on it. It's worth 50. Right? We had a clear-cut case for a short sale, except for two things. Right? One, we liked our house. Right? We really did like our house. Neither one of us has lost our jobs. Neither one of us had to go. We hadn't gone with an adjustable rate mortgage or anything like that. The payments were good to go from the begin with. We didn't overbuy. Right? We specifically went out and found a house that we could pay for if just one of us was making an income. And so we wrote it out. A couple years later, I sold the house across the street for $100,000. Right? Still not the 140 that we owed at the time. Right? But it started coming back. Where when we refinance this year, we're now at 295. Right? That's our appraisal. Right? House that we bought originally for 125, we just got appraised out at 295. And we wrote out that entire dip. So if you are sitting there thinking about what am I going to do with my house right now this second, and if you had a move coming up, like let's say we're talking about that downsizing, or let's say we're talking about that upsizing, you wanted to lock out that equity, something that's going to be happening in the next couple of years, now might be a really good time to go do that. And if you're a first-time home buyer looking at this, well, let's take a look at things, how this worked. Remember, it was 2006 when things stopped growing. It didn't crash for a year and a half later, and I think it was like October of 2007 when we first saw it. So that's almost 18 months, where we just sort of had that top right there before the wheels came off. If you were looking at buying, and if you're looking at buying and staying in a place for quite some time, it's move on with your life. Go ahead and make the purchase. Be smart. Don't pay for more house than you need. All right. Just because the lenders, and I love them all to death, but they always do this. You qualify for 385. If you can find an acceptable house at 320, get the 320. All right. I know you really want to impress people with your pretty kitchens and your granite countertops, and oh look at this, we have a walk-in pool and this and that and the other thing. But that's just your ego talking. How much of a mortgage, extra mortgage, are you going to pay because of your ego? All right. How much more of your mortgage are you going to pay to keep up with your brother-in-law? This is kind of conversations that are going to kick me out of the league of realtors or anything like that, because I really do not like people buying more house than they need. All right, it's cool, it's fancy, oh wow, look at us, but you need four walls, a roof, and air conditioning, and you only need air conditioning 10 months out of the year. Right? Be reasonable, don't be stupid, and just remember, you are always going to be making a mortgage payment. You'll either be making your mortgage payment or you're going to be making your landlord's mortgage payment. But your house is not a piggy bank. Your house is not your biggest investment. Right? It's your home. Right? Do not treat it as some sort of financial asset. All right. That's the note I want to end